The shortest time of your career is in those positions, the CXO positions. I know over here we were pumping and saying we want to be a CXO, but be aware, when you are at the top, it's a very short time.
A mountaineer never climbs without tools. A CXO never leads without systems. Master your instruments before the climb. Future CXO aspirants, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome a true global leader in high-tech innovation, Sanjay Tandon. Joining us all the way from Silicon Valley, he is the CEEF director and former senior director at Applied Materials. Sanjay has spent 40 years in high-tech and electronics. He has led global teams in R&D, product marketing, and service management. At Applied Materials, a $125 billion multinational, and at KLA-10 Core, as well as organizations like Lam Research, IBM, and other firms, he has held senior leadership positions. A holder of a US patent, and a prolific speaker at international conferences on semiconductor technologies, he is passionate about innovation, education, and entrepreneurship. Outside work, Sanjay is an endurance athlete and an active member of several professional and charitable organizations. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Sanjay Tandon. Give him a warm Global CXO Summit welcome, Mr. Sanjay Tandon. Welcome, Sanjay.
Thanks, sir. So good morning again. Thank you so much, Mudit and everyone else for coming over here. Appreciate your time. So let's get started. So what you're seeing over here is tools for leadership success. And by that I mean the big picture. And the big picture is what Dwight Eisenhower said. And this was 50 years back. His thing was leadership is the art of influencing people to want to do what must be done to achieve a greater good. I'm going to read it again. Leadership is the art of influencing people to want to do what must be done to achieve a greater good. Now, we all understand the English part of it. It's easy to comprehend. What is amazing is what Dwight Eisenhower never says in this. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room to be the leader. You don't have to be the fastest person in the room to be a leader. You don't have to be the one that everyone looks at and says, oh my God, this guy is, or this lady is the best. You have to be able to influence. And that is key. That is a key in everything. Not that you're trying to be a salesperson. A lot of salesperson are out there, but you don't trust them. You trust a leader. So I'm going to ask you a question. When you see something like this, give me names of some of the leaders that come to mind in your life, politics, and business. Can we have a show of hands? Can we, anybody wants? So Dhirubhai Ambani is one of the leaders that you think is influences people and does it for greater good. Thank you. Very nice. Anybody else? Please, in the front row.
My name is Bharat. I think the wonderful example that I can think of right now is Narendra Modi. He's doing a fantastic job.
Correct. I hear you. Very nice. Can we take somebody on that side? I know it'll be running back and forth. The gentleman over there, the good-looking gentleman and the...
Yeah, good morning all. Myself, Rohit Rawat. And Ratan Tata ji is, I think, a true leader and inspiration for me.
Perfect. So Ratan Tata ji, Dhirubhai Ambani, and then Narendra Modi. Is there anybody else at the back? Let's have a lady at the back say that. And please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. I am Meenakshi. I have a list of leaders, but the prominent one being a lady even comes in my mind is Indira Nooyi, who broke the stereotypes and who has been the longest CEO, and many more things. Recently could...
Absolutely right. Indira Nooyi, she's a remarkable person. And not only that, another person is her sister, Tandon, again, she goes by my name, and she's not only a leader in her field, but also a very good singer. So these are some of the examples that you have seen of leadership. But let me also share one of the things that when I talk about this, and we coach people in Silicon Valley, the people that they talk about who actually influences people at a large scale is people like Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela, people say, oh my God, when you hear him, when you talk to him, he is integrity. He walks the talk. And we know in India, another leader like that. Anybody wants to? Mahatma Gandhi, exactly. Go ahead, Meenakshi, one more time.
Yeah, the one leader who stands out is Subhash Chandra Bose, who spoke to Hitler and who made the army and who almost took 3,000 soldiers back over India and fought for India.
Yeah.
So that was the influence he made. So.
And we still talk about him.
And we still talk about him.
Yeah. Thank you. So, again, when Dwight Eisenhower was saying this, he was saying this for a purpose. And the purpose was that your leadership that you have is something above and beyond yourself. Yes, a lot of times, and by the way, everything that I'm going to tell you is an 80-20 rule. Everyone knows the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, it actually is right, but there'll always be exceptions to the rule. So there are leaders who have actually, who have misused their influence. We all know of Hitler, we all know of Stalin, who have led people to destruction. And we have also seen other places like Saddam Hussein and other things. And these are political leaders. But we have also seen something like this that has happened in the business world, where people, for their own short-term greed, for their own short-term, their thing, not for everyone else, they have led people to destruction, whether the company has gone bankrupt or they have lost the market share for their product. So if you see this, the key thing over here is it is influencing. And a lot of the thing I'm going to talk about is how you go from where you were to where you will be. And so I wish the next slide I'm going to show you is something that somebody would have shown me when I was an individual contributor. Now, I'm sure none of you are an individual contributor at the present moment, but all of us, as Mudit was mentioning, we want to be CXOs. We want to be the strategic thinkers. We want to make the corporate strategy. We want to be the top of the terms of the expertise, communicators, and drive outcome, excellence, responsible for profit and loss, and responsible for the virtuous cycle of prosperity. That is where we want to be. Most of us have been beyond the individual contributor role. But let me tell you, the individual contributor role is one of the most important. And you folks have already gone through that. But that's a 10 or 15-year time period where you're building your personal domain expertise. And so some of the things that we have mentioned over here is, we all come from different educational backgrounds, a lot of different experiences, functional skills. But the two things that come out, and this is what we look in Silicon Valley, is do you have the aptitude to do the job? And more importantly, do you have the attitude to do the job? And by that, what I mean is, a lot of time you'll find a person is remarkable in their ability to do the domain things specific for them. They're the best IT people. They're best in their GCC. They're best marketing people. But their attitude is something that is lacking. They do not build relationships. They do not have that thing. They're all for themselves. They come into the room and they suck out the oxygen of the room. And so a lot of time what happens is, yes, sometimes we look at these people and say, okay, they are hard drivers, they're type A personalities. Fine. That will take you to a certain point, but you will plateau. So again, the key thing over there is what takes you from an individual contributor to being a manager may not take you to being a director or vice president or managing director. And then definitely that will not take you to being a CXO. So with a show of hands, I'm presuming all of you over here are in this space. Is that correct? Okay, perfect. And if that's the case, you all know, in fact, Mudit actually touched on it, and I think also Amit, you touched on it to say that is we want to be 10x of where we are. So as with everything else, when people ask me, and they also ask Kalyani this in Silicon Valley, in fact, my team overseas, and I had teams in Finland, I had teams in Singapore, and in India too, in Israel and Italy, they would say, Sanjay, what is the reason for your success? Or how have you been able to be successful? Or what is the Silicon Valley thing for success? And I say there's no shortcut. The key thing over there is, and I'm being very honest about this, 17 hours a day of work. Now, people will say, that is crazy. You can't do 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you have to have the passion to be able to do the work. You have to apply yourself, and do realize that if you are not doing that work, somebody else is doing it. And the world, as we all know, has become flat. There is now no place in the world where I cannot hire people to do the exact same thing that the American people are doing, that the British people are doing, or the French, or for the matter, the Indians are doing. Every time we look at it, we say, where do we go next? Is it Vietnam? Is it Taiwan? And at least in the area in Silicon Valley where I am, when Elon Musk comes and says he works all the time, he's not kidding. You may or may not like his personality, you may think he's really good, but the truth is, if you have to go to the next level up, you have to put that time commitment. And sometimes it's very difficult. And I know that for myself because there was a time when, especially during the pandemic, when things were going haywire, we were trying to change the environment, that is our entire company structure. We were working round the clock. The good thing is that now with AI, now with some of these tools that are coming out over there, you can actually help things. I used to spend so much time summarizing, making notes, putting things together just to give updates to executives, my management, our collaboration, our customers, our suppliers, our vendors. And now, how many of you have used AI in Microsoft, right? Copilot, you have a Teams meeting and literally, you actually have a summary built for you. That is one of the best things that happened. And we used to spend, literally, the question was, let's go ahead and get that team meeting done and let's get, summarize what the action items are. No longer. That is your saving thing. The other part of this is, a lot of time, was spent in people writing copious notes and talking about, and doing the research, the topic. Now AI does the research for you. But of course, you have to be very careful because it tends to get, fake information. So you have to make sure, not only if you're using AI, that you're using it diligently. Now, what happens in Silicon Valley? And I'm talking about when you're in the manager and supervisor or in the director role or a vice president role, you tell people, I want you to work harder, work faster, and do this. These new tools are the ones that are going to allow you to do 10x much more. Not only that, but one of the key things as a manager or as a managing director, you have to build your team. This is key. You can't do everything. If you want to do the 10x that Mudit is asking for, and you want to go to that 1 crore, that thing, you have to make sure that you empower your team to do the work that you do. This is a lot of time when I have, mentioned this to my colleagues or to my team members, they say, oh my God, if I train this other person, my job is at threat. The next time there's a downturn, they'll get rid of me. But I can tell you one thing. Yes, you'll keep your job, but you'll be stuck in that job. If you are a leader, you literally have to make sure that you create a bench for you. And the reason I say this is, today I'm in Bangalore, beautiful Bangalore, and what really heartens my thing is my ex-colleagues, my managers, my directors who were there with me, want to come and meet me. And they know that I'm over here for this, but all of them are coming to meet me on Monday. And the reason behind this is because they said, you're the one who actually empowered us to do our jobs, and they are thriving. So one of the best things that happens that you can make yourself the same you, but 10 times more is you invest in people. You basically, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So if you want to be successful, you have to get out from the thing of trying to do everything yourself. I know each one of you can do the work much better than some of your, the people who report into you or your colleagues. But you have to trust them. You have to make sure that you actually empower them to do the work. Otherwise, you will not be able to scale. And you will end up doing stuff that somebody else can do, maybe not as good as you, but you have to, you'll be not doing the other things, which is being strategic. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Any questions about what I just talked about? Please.
Are you a mid-career leader who wants to earn 1 crore or who wants to become a CTO, a CIO, a CDO, a CISO, a CFO, a CRO, or any other C-suite or CXO role? The road to the CXO is something that I know and I can teach you. So don't delay, click on the link below.
On this point of delegating and empowering your teams. So while this is true, and we often and I've been doing this, what happens if there is a ceiling above you in terms of terms of your manager or your leadership is not getting into more of operations and not delegating it. So there is a ceiling which you hit with that.
How many of you have been in the same situation with Saurabh? I'll tell you the secret. Your manager is threatened by you. And not because of anything else, because they are the ones who say, if Saurabh can do what I'm doing, then in a sense, my management will say, I don't need somebody who's being paid more, and Saurabh is a better person to do that. So to your point, you will always come across that. But that's where I'm going to show you how you can influence. Because, again, one of the best part about somebody like you, Saurabh, who knows what to do and maybe not being helped is if you have the integrity and people can trust you, you have to then be able to communicate that. A lot of time what happens is we know we are really good, but we are so humble that we do not share what we do. And that's where networking is important. That's where, being, making a point of meeting up, not only have skip level meetings. And so this is one of the things that, I used to do in my organization to say, my team, do a skip level meeting, not only with me, but, the people who are managers report their reports, do it with me, and the ones who are reporting to me do with my, my executives. And that actually allows you, and if you, do it right, and I don't want you to burn bridges in the process of doing so, but that is the right thing, because if you're doing the work, somebody should be aware of it. Because if you don't, then you'll keep doing the work and they'll take the credit. So to your point, it's one of those things we'll talk about and how you can do that. But thank you, Saurabh, for that.
Thank you.
Okay?
There are this is like a typical curve that is supposed to be, but due to certain circumstances like market conditions or it could be like Corona, downtime, something like that. There is a possibility of the director not getting into the CXO, but rather descending down.
Very good point, Chandrasekhar. This has happened, and this will keep happening. And I'll tell you why this will happen again. Because a lot of time what happens is, to your point, Chandrasekhar, in executive management, we are always being asked to reduce costs, and we are always being asked to, increase profitability. And I have been part of, as one of the senior management, to actually take out layers. So you may have somebody who is in a director position or in a manager position, then become, individual contributor. Now, a lot of time people say, oh my God, this is the worst thing that has happened, because titles are important. Believe it or not, people say, don't worry about the title, but titles are important. But don't take this as a setback. Because one of the things that I've seen is, and I'll be honest with you, I have had to let go of people, not because that they were not doing well, but because the economy was bad and we had to retrench. Every time somebody has left, they have actually landed in a better position and they have been happier. And we'll talk a little bit about that. What are the 4 things that you can do to balance your life? And so to your point, a setback, especially in Silicon Valley, and I think Kalyani, where's my wife? Okay, Kalyani is right there. So we'll talk to this is, are setbacks something that will, take away the shine from you? And the answer in Silicon Valley is not. And the reason behind this is because there are so many people doing startups. There are so many people who have taken, they have been like CXOs, and they have stepped off that, gone to a startup, and they're doing everything. They don't have the title. But what really makes a difference is nothing succeeds like success. If you are successful, and sort of going back to you, if you are perceived as a success, forget your manager, but by people around you, they will rally to your cause to say, my God, because the influence that you will generate is based on the value of your work, not on the value of your title. There's so many times you walk into, a leader walks in a room and you say, the only reason this person is a leader is because he is somebody's pet, or somebody's, has mentored him, or whatever the case may be. You don't respect him, but you respect somebody who walks in a room and who has built themselves up and who's also collaborating. So we'll talk about that. But thank you, Chandrasekhar.
Thank you very much.
This, again, the first individual contributor 10 to 15 years thing, the manager, director is your sweet spot, because that'll be for the next 10 to 15 years. Your career span is 40 years maximum. Can go plus or minus. People go from 30, 35 to 40, 45. But you have to be aware that is, usually by the time you're in 40 years into your career, you can take a break and you can start your own startup. And that's, all those things can happen. But usually the corporate career is 40 years. And the shortest time of your career is in those positions, the CXO positions. I know over here we were pumping and saying we want to be a CXO, but be aware, when you are at the top, it's a very short time. And you're going to be working so hard that you would not even know when those 3 years, 4 years, 5 years has gone. And things will change. And, good reasons where you come to the point you'll say, I'm done. And I know somebody in my life who said, I have taken the Silicon Valley company and I have taken it, launched it. It's gone public. It's a $3 billion company. And Sanjay, I'm done. So that is my wife, Kalyani, and she'll talk about that. But there's a time when you say, I'm done with this, because you have done everything that you wanted to do. Or there's a time when things will change. You can't help it. The product that you were trying to push out and you were trying to be successful, your competition has come with something which will be basically undercut you. And guess what happens? Your board, and I'm now on the board of these things, like, see, if we come to you and say, Sanjay, great, you've been an asset, but let's do one thing. We don't think you can be the leader going forward. It has to be somebody else. And different reasons for it. And even look at what is happening with and I'm going to go back to Elon several times because he's big in the news. We just heard recently they're looking for a replacement for Elon. Elon is so successful. He's done 2, 3, 4, 5 companies, done everything quote unquote right from the Silicon Valley standpoint. But he's being replaced. And the first thing that happens when you know that there's truth is when people come back and say, there's no truth to this news that that Elon is being replaced. And the question is that what happens is you may be at the zenith of your career, the top of your career, and the rug gets pulled in. So enjoy the journey. That is the important part, because at the end of the day, you have to be happy in the stages of your life where you are, whether with family, with friends, and for the matter, the 17 hours a day that you'll be spending in your office. Okay? So with this, I'm going to move on. Any questions?
Hello, Mr. Tandon. My name is Uzma. My question is, how important is it to be a people manager to reach the CXO level?
Extremely important, because the first slide that I showed you, let me go back to that. You have to influence. Your influence is important. You have to build a team, and some of the best ways to actually impact the organization is by building a solid team. So if you're a people manager, it's important, but at the same time, you also have to, so let's say, for example, if you're in HR, you're doing people management, which is great. But if you're in something other than that, you have to have your domain expertise. But then you have to grow. You cannot always, a lot of time people tell me, and especially in India, and I don't want to say this in the wrong way, they said, Sanjay, I want to build a team. Once I have like 15 people, then I'll become a senior manager. When I have 25 people, I'll become a director. Yes and no. Because now what is happening is compaction is taking place. A people manager is good if you are building careers, if you're letting those people do 10 times the work that you could do. So that's a good thing. But just being, there are people who have 500 people in our organization who have people reporting into them. Does that mean that they're good? They don't even spend time with them. So people management is good. It's a way to success. But at the same time, it is something that you have to make sure your executive management appreciates that. Otherwise, they will basically put everyone underneath you, and other people will be doing the work, the good work, the exciting work, and you'll just be doing the one-on-ones, and you'll be hearing the complaints, and you'll be hearing all this other stuff. So, big picture. Sorry I took a little bit of time. Let's go down to what the leadership requirements are. This is critical, because if you know what the leadership requirements are, we can train to that. So, might sound very much like motherhood and apple pie, but this is what it is. Leadership traits is the key thing is integrity. Now, people say, oh my God, you're asking me to become like a monk, or you're asking me to become somebody who is very truthful, honest, and everything else. The answer is yes. And the reason I say this is because when you're in leadership, when people look to you, they're looking for your professional integrity. And by that, what I mean is a 3-word acronym that we were, was drilled into us in Silicon Valley, HFC. Does anybody know what HFC stands for? Take a guess. Honest. Now, by that, what I mean, professional honesty. You should be the type of person in a leadership who should be known to speak the truth about the business, about the conditions, about the market, about your customers, about your vendors, your suppliers, and about your colleagues. Nobody is, and you look at it in your own life, nobody wants to basically be friends or depend on somebody who's duplicitous. The one who'll say one thing to you and say something to else. They may be successful in the short term, but this is one of the things that we were always told. And even to date is a leader will be honest. Now, a lot of time, and I'll give you an example. We had a big layoff that took place. I was one of the people who was driving the layoff. Not a good thing to happen. We made mistakes, the company made mistakes, and this is many years back, and we were doing a massive layoff. I had met up with the team several times to say, listen, things are tough. Things are, may not be happening the way we do it. We'll try to do what makes good for everyone. And one of my person that I did lay off was a person who was close to me, a friend of mine. We had gone out for lunches and dinners. And his thing was, Sanjay, you were not honest to me to say that you were going to lay me off. And the thing is, as a leader, you owe it to the company to be honest to the company in terms of the work side of it. But you also have the requirement to, or a need to know basis, to share that information. Now, you can't always say, like for example, I'm not telling you to be so honest, and well, in the sense the honesty, the wrong way. Don't go to Mudit and say, Mudit, we don't like your red tie. Yes, you may have that in your mind, but what you want to, don't take things on which is not the how do I say, the conflict that is not required. Not only that, but the key thing over here is honesty is in the things that you do, that people can look to you and say, I can go to Sanjay, I can go to Mukesh, I can go to Hamza, and I can actually get a straightforward in the business. So this is the business side of honesty. The second thing is forthrightness. A lot of time people say, I've been honest, but they are not forthright. They will not share with you, everyone, and this is why people don't like salespeople. Not that the salespeople are wrong. Salespeople will sell you. They'll always tell you the good side. It's bright over here. This is the best product. But you don't trust a salesperson. You trust, guess where, this whole thing about influences, the whole thing about Amazon saying to you, if you like this, or listen, your friends are buying this product. Why? Because you trust your friends to guide you well and not to mislead you. There's so many times that I've come across where, we talk in Silicon Valley. Anytime something happens, always talk it up, always, sell it up. And I'm sure you folks have heard the same thing. That is, you're always in the selling motive, sell up to your customer. But there are times where we have told our customers, do not go with this product because this is cutting edge. It is not reliable. It will give you that initial thing, but don't expect it to, keep going. And the customers have come back and said, that's the best advice. And we are willing to pay more to buy something like this because they realize that we are being forthright. We're being honest about our product, and we're being forthright by telling them both the good and bad. As a leader, it is for you to realize you have to be honest to your core, you have to be forthright in how you say it, and you have to make sure the timing is right. Okay? The last part about this is consistency. Can you guys see this side? You can't be honest only 20% of the time. You can't be forthright 50% of the time. You have to be consistent. Nothing is more troubling to executive management, to your board, if you're not consistent. And the reason I say this is because you need to know that every time I go and meet up with Saurabh is going to tell me, the way it is, what is a good, what is a bad, and he's going to be consistent about it. It's not going to be today because, here's a new person in management and he's saying, oh, this is so good, and then tomorrow the person's out of management and say, oh, this is horrible. So if you want to be a good leader, this is what they talk about, the integrity. This is one whole aspect of it, which is what we call HFC. But this is not the only thing.
Hi, I'm Mudit Saxena. I'm a Global CXO leadership coach. I'm globally awarded. I'm a TEDx speaker. But you know what's most important? My students have become CEOs, CXOs. My students have got 100% increase in their salary. Some of them earn more than 1 crore. Some of them didn't have jobs and they found new jobs. I've been a CXO. I worked in 5 countries over the last 30 years. And I've impacted 10,000 lives across the world. My students have come from the US, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia. The road to the CXO is something that I know and I can teach you. So I look forward to working with you, and if you're interested, just book a call with me in the link below.
To be a good leader, you have to have the 4 C's, the critical elements for successful leadership. And the 4 C's are competence. We talk about this, you have to be good in your domain skills. A lot of time people again ask me, hey, how can I be successful? My question is, what is your domain skill? People say, I'm really good in software. I'm really good in marketing. Okay, if you're good in marketing, that is great. And if you're good in software, or there are times where we say, are you good in, and the person says, well, I'm not that much interested in engineering. You know, I got into it for whatever reasons. I'm not happy with it. I want to move out into marketing. If that's the case, there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to understand, moving from one thing to the other, from one domain to the other domain is okay. But you have to have at least the basics under your belt. Because people will look at you for your competence. And so competence is your foundation. The second part of that is collaboration. Competence is where you are as an individual contributor. Collaboration is what gets you to the next level. This is the secret sauce. A lot of time people say, I'm going to do my work, I'm going to do it really well, I'm going to shine. I'm going to communicate it to everyone that I'm so good and everything else, and people recognize it. Yes and no. You will only go to a certain level. But if you make other managers, other directors, other groups successful, that is extremely important, because it is going back to that whole thing, which is when you collaborate with people, when you're forthright with them, they are there as your support group, as your vocal, and as you become the influencer across the organization. And I'll share something about my career. I was brought into an organization, I was brought into a company, and the reason behind that was because the CEO were people that I had worked with, and they knew that I was one of the people who would come in and actually turn things around. So when they brought me into this organization, their whole thing was, Sanjay, right now, this whole, the work that we are asking you to do is federated. There are like about 15 or 20 companies or organizations within each, and each one of them has this small function, knowledge management in each of the groups. So every group had a knowledge management team. They were the ones who were doing the WBTs, the web-based training. They were the ones who were doing the information design. And everyone wanted it in their own domain, because their whole thing was, hey, if I want something, I want it tomorrow. I want it right away. And the companies was like, you know, we have 20 organizations, and all these 20 organizations have at least, if not 5, if not 10, we have like, you know, redundancies all over. When I got into the organization, my thing was, I wanted to centralize it, because we had demonstrated how important it was to centralize knowledge management. But going to you know, another director or another VP and saying, my friend, you need to give up your resources, especially in the corporate environment, was, you know, fraught with things where people say, no, I'm unique. So one of the things that we did was we came in and we basically said, we'll collaborate, and in your own domain, we will make you successful. We will bring those pieces of, you know, functionality or skills that you do not have. Initially, there was a pushback, and it took us a couple of years. But literally, the biggest thing that happened for us was that we had this big company, which is a part of our bigger company in Israel. And you know how the Israelis are. Israelis are very focused, very driven, and their whole thing is, we do it better than the Americans, we do it better than the Chinese, etc., etc. In that trajectory for 2 to 3 years, it was a long time, 3 years, I get a phone call from the person, from the head, the VP, actually he was the executive VP of that organization in Israel, and said, Sanjay, I'm amazed at the stuff that your team has done across. You guys do it better than me, or you guys do it better than us. We want to turn over the organization to you. And so literally I flew over there that same week. We got the team members all together, and the first thing people said, my God, Sanjay's come over here to lay us off, fire us, and, you know, send everyone their jobs all over the world. But the first thing we did was we said, no, we want to keep the domain skills. So we kept the team, but then we passed out the things that were not value added to the other parts of the world. And we were able to actually make that organization even stronger. The things that would take months to come out were coming out in weeks. The things that were taking weeks were coming out in days. And literally, the quality went up. So one of the things that happened as a result of that, it gave us that seal of approval to say, now we are centralizing everything. So collaboration is extremely important. When you're working with your managers, your VPs, your colleagues, always be looking out for their good. Always be, because if you do that, if you play it forward, that will work for you. The third C is communication. Goes back to the three forms of communication that take place. The verbal communication, which is what we do. Now, the thing is, the verbal communication that we do is very short-lived. You and I talk. The hallway conversations that take place, they remain, and they don't go further than that. So, but they are very important. So don't get me wrong. Verbal communication is very good, so you have to be articulate. You have to be very, how do I say this? You have to be very high level in terms of, you can't be long-winded. You have to be very short. Summarize. And if you are not sure of how you're doing it, point-wise. I have 3 things to talk to you. I have had people who say, Sanjay, I need an hour to tell you what is right and wrong. And my whole thing is, I'm going to give you 5, maximum 10 minutes. You tell me what are the first, second, and third things that you need to do. And it's, if you're well prepared, that is the best thing you can do for yourself, because if you're not prepared, you take a lot of time talking about it. So always make sure that verbal communication is clear. Second part of it is written communication. Anything that you put down on paper is going to come to either to make you a success in the future, or is going to come and haunt you. Do not put anything down on an email or on a research paper or on anything which is not appropriate. And I say not appropriate in terms of social and other things. The best advice that I got was somebody was saying, in terms of, we were trying to sell products to our customers. Don't put something down that will come out at a later stage, which would then basically, the customers say, Sanjay said something like this, and that's why we're not buying the product. So you have to be very careful about what you put down on the paper. But you have to be also very sharp, very concise in your written form of communication. And third, and most importantly, is that non-verbal communication. The non-verbal communication is your attitude, your mannerisms. And this is also some of the things that happens, because when you are working in a startup or in a big company, at the executive level when you come to it, there are a handful of you. You have to make sure that your emotions, you can't be where you're going off the, you can't get riled up quickly. You have to basically step back and understand what the people are saying. So your non-verbal communications are very important. And as part of nonverbal communication is also your dress sense. A lot of times it'll be so amazing is, we go to company events and people are dressed inappropriately. Even in Silicon Valley, the whole concept is, no, you have to be appropriately set up. You have to be appropriately attired. Gone are the days when we were in the pandemic, when people were, doing, video calls, or not only video calls, but they were doing phone calls and they were in their jammies. Those things are back. It's back, back to the office. So it's so good when a person is, together, well attired, and articulate, and writes well, speaks well, he or she, it makes all the difference. The last C over here is the consistency. Again, remember we said HFC, honest, forthright, and consistent. This is, again, the consistency that comes over here, which is the perseverance, the drive, and the tenacity. I can't say that enough. A lot of time you'll come across something where you would have given it your all, and it will not work, it'll fail. That doesn't mean that you are a failure. That just means you have a piece of learning. Step back. Go back to your collaboration. Go back to the circles of people who you're working with, and ask them, How can we do it better? And be very careful. This is what I learned in my career. We love to hear good things about ourselves. Nothing is better than going to a friend and saying, I was in this situation and this was a failure, and guess what the person will say? He or she will say, Sanjay, it's not your fault. It's Saurabh's fault. It's Mukesh's fault. It is somebody else's fault. Don't do that. The best way to learn, and we say this in Silicon Valley, is you go to the person who may not be your biggest promoter, your biggest supporter, and have that thing to say, what is the thing that I can do better, or what is the thing in this situation that has not worked out? What would you advise me? And this is very important. And of course, you have to choose the place and time to do something like this. And the reason I say this is because you will learn more from the people who do not like what you're doing than from the people who basically make excuses for you. And this is for sure. Because they will get down to the nub and say, Sanjay, you did this, and that's why we don't like it. And you say, okay, step back and say, maybe that was the reason for the failure. And you go through the analysis. So again, consistency in terms of the tenacity and getting also the message across. Any questions?
Hi, I'm Srinivas. In the previous slide, we spoke about being honest and being forthright, right?
Correct.
And in this case, when we talk about communication, we also talk about being little careful in terms of how we communicate.
Correct.
And what we put in the written communication as well.
Correct.
Isn't that kind of contradicting what we wanted to say?
No, and that's what I was telling you before also. A lot of time what happens is you have to be honest to in your professional, in your work thing, but there's a need to know of the information you can share. And as I was saying, when I had to make the decision, when people were saying, well, you didn't tell us that you're going to be laid off, legally I was not allowed to do that. But I did give them heads up to say, hey, listen, this is going to be a tough time. We'll try to do what we can. So be honest, be forthright, but also be very circumspect about what information you should and should not share. Very key. Okay?
Thank you.
I'm being told I need to move up, so let me keep going. The third part of this is relationship, relationship, relationship. And everyone says, what do you mean by this? So let me just quote you what Maya Angelou says. I've learned that people will forget what you said. And I say this is very important because after this conference, statistically we know that within a week, you will forget 50% of the stuff that we have said to you. People will forget what you did or what you wrote down. And again, this is true because within 3 weeks, 75% of the stuff that is said or that is shown over here, you'll forget. But what you will not forget is what Mudit had mentioned, which is the feeling. But people will never forget how you made them feel. And the reason I say this is because this is not just to get your Josh going. This is not just to get your thing going. But this is to invoke inside you your inner strength to go to the next level. All of this stuff that I'm telling you, these are things, I think, Mudit, you'll be sharing some of these slides, right? So you will have, what you really need to know is how is business done in this world? Business in this world is done through relationships. You can be very competent, you can be very smart, but if there's no, somebody mentioned about Ambani, right? Mukesh Ambani. Mukesh's whole thing is he sits down and the first 3 to 5 minutes, he gives a proposal, gets the feedback, the work is done. They are not going, the legal people come in afterwards to do, those, 300-page documents, or the financial people then work out the details. But he basically does his thing in the first 3 to 5 minutes. And that is based on relationship. And the reason behind this is because the 3 things, HFC, the 4 C's, and relationship, are what gives you the credibility and influence, and that leads to trust. So if you want to influence people, you have to have this, which is your demonstrated competence in your area of work, along with your integrity in HFC. And again, that is very careful of how you do that and your relationship. It's so much easier. We know this in India. And I'm going back to the times where Mudit and I were talking about, we didn't have processes, we didn't have procedures. Things were basically on the basis of who you know, not what you know. The good thing about India is there's mass digitalization. There's changes in all the way things are done, but still relationships are very important. And as you grow up in your executive leadership, you will realize that people want to work with you based on the fact that what they perceive of you, both in terms of a human being and in terms of what the benefit they'll get. Okay? Thank you again.